Welcome to Coastal Frequency. Today we bring you a new episode in our continuing series, Meet the Innerpreneurs of Long Beach. Innerpreneurs, people who are driven to create businesses, primarily to express their life passion, as well as to be of service to others. Today we introduce you to Chef Paul Buchanan of Primal Alchemy Catering and his wife, Dana. They are one of the pioneers in the local, sourced, and sustainable movement in Long Beach. Chef Paul and Dana have been providing amazing catered dining experiences since 2003. Welcome, Chef Paul and Dana, to Coastal Frequency.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hey. Tell our listeners about why you chose the name Primal Alchemy.
I was reading a book in culinary school called On Food and Cooking by Harold McGee, and it just struck me that he said that cooking is the primal alchemy. So that's the first science that man ever did, and I thought, wow, that's great. If I ever have a restaurant someday, I'll name it Primal Alchemy. And so I didn't have the restaurant, I had the catering company, so we just used the name for that to start, and it fit right because, you know, primal is first and alchemy is kind of this old medieval science of turning base elements into gold. So I think I turned food into gold now.
It's kind of magical, don't you think? The other question I have is, what values drive your excellence in food preparation, presentation, and the entire event experience that I know you provide for your clients?
I think that we stick to our ethos of being seasonal, sustainable, and local. And unfortunately, there's a lot of greenwashing out there, and there's a lot of businesses, restaurants and catering and food businesses that market themselves as being truly green, but when you really get down to it, go drive around the back and see what trucks are pulling up in the back and what kind of boxes they're opening and things like that, and they're just not doing it. They just say they're doing it for marketing, and we've never ever done that. And I think that makes us more authentic than any other catering company that's out there right now. And what we do, we were the first ones in Southern California that started doing, we founded it on seasonal, sustainable, and local, and we really do. We source from the farmers markets. Farmers are our friends. We go stay in their farms. We actually see where the produce is being grown. We go to the dory fleet to get fish. I mean, just everything we do is geared towards making sure we bringing to our guests and our clients the food that we say we're going to be bringing. So I think that in the experience from their end, our name, number one, like we talked about, and what we do attracts the kind of client that we like to have. So we don't get people that hire caterers that open boxes of pre-made appetizers from Cisco. We don't get those kind of people. We get people who think food is first and foremost important to them. We have, for instance, weddings where the bride and groom is like, food is it. We don't care if we don't have flowers. We don't care if we don't have linens on the table. We want your food. We want real food. We want it to be good. We want people to remember it forever, and they do. We get phone calls from bride and grooms that are going to have their first baby shower, 3 years later, and say, people still talk about our wedding food. So I think when you use real ingredients, the experience of the client is they get to taste real food.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that awesome? Why doesn't everybody work this way? But I want to go back to your early years. Really, everyone starts out in life as little babies, and then something, either a person or some event happens and influences you. When and how did you come to understand you had a passion around food?
Well, I came from a family that had all those Thanksgivings and Easters and Christmases together, and so a lot of the females in my life, my mother, my grandmother, they did so many things of making the pies and making all the ingredients for those celebrations. So that was really important. And then my mother decided that she was going to grow a garden in the side yard, much to my sister and I's chagrin of not liking eggplant, but we made a few eggplants disappear over the back fence. But the rest of it was great. And when we had so many tomatoes, I got my little wagon. I take the strawberry baskets and I put all the tomatoes in the strawberry baskets, and I went door to door and sold them to the neighbors. And so I was kind of like a small little sales entrepreneur for our garden when we had too much. But I like that, having a garden outside, bringing it in and having it for dinner. That was fun. I mean, of course, I loved hamburgers and stuff back then. I wasn't all in as I am today, but it was like
yes, you evolved.
But I evolved quite a bit. But gardening is a huge part of what I do now as relaxation and to feed my own family. We have an organic garden, so it's nice to be able to supplement, here at the farmer's market. But on my garden right now, we're growing lots of carrots and rainbow color of carrots, which it should be. So.
2 more weeks, probably.
Yeah.
I got you. How many would you like?
That's unusual that they have figs this late in the season. Because they start in like July, usually? June or July. Just depends on what season it is and what elevation it is. Because, different times of the year, it just depends on, what varietals they have when they come in. Oh my gosh, look at the carrots here. Wise ones. These guys have been my longtime favorite. That's gorgeous there. This is what I want in my garden right now. But if I start them now, especially the babies like this, look at how beautiful those are. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to get some since I'm here. Because I can. Because we end up pickling a lot of these little ones. Come out. Fantastic. It's really hot. So.
Wow, right outside your door is a garden for Primal Alchemy. Awesome, I love that. I didn't know that.
And my experience is a little bit different. I grew up with parents my mom was kind of a hippie that didn't do drugs. So we had the 63 Volkswagen bus and, went touring all over California and campgrounds and basically ate real food from a very young age. We never had Cocoa Puffs in the house. We never had fake cheese. We never had anything. We had a garden for a long time, but she used to drive out to Loma Linda to buy meats that weren't hormone driven. And this is like in the 60s.
Right.
We made our own granola. We grew mung bean sprouts on top of the refrigerator.
Wow.
We made smoothies. We had basically real food from day one, and so my palate got to know that kind of food very well.
The thing is that people look at the tops and they think, oh, well, I'm just going to eat this. It says this goes in your salad. Yeah. Or make carrot top pesto. Yeah, we make carrot top pesto. The thing is, when these grow, sometimes they get a little sandy. So you really have to wash these really good. But yeah, we make pesto out of the carrot top. And it's delicious. Wow. Garlic and pine nuts or walnuts.
And when I got older, I had a friend of mine who was an early investor in some of the restaurants in the 80s up in LA and Spago and Patina and things like that. And I had the opportunity at a very young age to go eat very, very high-end food, from like 20 years old on.
Wow, what are those?
Honeydew radish. So they have 3 different kinds of radishes right now, and we shave them and put them in salads. But they're really, really nice. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I got 5 of those. Just gonna remember what I got.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice because you can come here and you can pick the size that you want. Because I'm always kind of particular about what size when they have potatoes. They have a few potatoes now, but usually they have more. And you can pick them so they're the right size, so you can scoop them and make them into a little hors d'oeuvre so they're bite size.
And really experience the early renaissance of the food, of the restaurant industry in LA. And I think those two combined kind of drove me towards really pretty, tasty food that's made with quality ingredients. So that's kind of where I got to where my palate came from.
It makes perfect sense for where you are today.
And some damn good wines.
Okay, so I have to ask the question I know you get asked all the time. Any plans for creating perhaps a restaurant called Primal Alchemy?
Silence.
We get asked that every day. Like Paul says, we do catering because we have a kid, and raising our child has been more important than having a restaurant to us. So we wouldn't say no to that. It would have to be the right place, the right location, the right look, the right feel. And it'd probably still have to have a venue attached to it so we could still do events. So
yes.
We're not saying no to anything. We are open to what life will bring us.
Yes. We're all in transformation right now. Anything can happen.
Every space in Long Beach we've been looking at, to try to say, is that our next home?
It'll evolve. It'll evolve.
Let's try both for you. it's my neighbor. Scone. He used to be down on the peninsula, down on the peninsula, and we would go there. He had a little tiny shop, and we'd go and buy his scones there, and then you sold them to Ma and Pa's, and you sold them to Polly's for a while.
Yeah, he lived up the house how long?
And then when you moved straight to Anaheim, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and he's been in Anaheim forever. He makes all different kinds of granolas and nice organic stuff, and he still makes his cookies and his scones. But the scones, the tri-berry scones, are still my favorite.
So this is a question that is taking what you know and what you have a passion around and figuring out, what if there were more caterers and more restaurants that approached the food business the way you do. And I'm wondering if that were to be happening, how could that translate to actually a better Long Beach, for example?
Well, I'm really proud of the fact of what we've done so far, and I've done events, our farm dinner, which is, we just finished our 9th year doing that, Long Beach Urban Farm Dinner, brings in a lot of chefs that are like-minded and restaurateurs that are like-minded. So that kind of feeds it, because at the beginning we had maybe five chefs at the beginning. This year we had 25 chefs feeding 275 people. So
25. I didn't know the early days of going from 5 to 25. Isn't that amazing?
It's huge. So it has grown exponentially, and also we can't be the only organization. So we hope that there's other places like Long Beach Fresh, which gets people together and food feeders, seeders, and eaters, and getting them along that lines. But even farmers markets. This farmers market. There is a farmer's market every day in Long Beach. You go to other towns, they don't have a farmer's market every day in a different location. I mean, we have a town of 500,000 people, but we're really, really lucky that no matter what day of the week it is, you can go to a farmer's market. And actually today there's two on Sundays. And so there's a lot of markets in here. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to be able to go meet new farmers. Some people I've never even met before, that's their first time here. They're just, there's a lot of farmers out there, and farmers market helps connect that with the public. So, have you ever seen rainbow celery? There's rainbow celery right there. All the different colors right there. So people buy Swiss chard, they eat the leaves, they cook it like spinach, and then they think there's all the different colors of celery right there. You can just slice it across in thin little slices and then saute it up. We have it with our eggs for breakfast. So people don't realize that a lot of vegetables are 2 for 1. They throw away the tops of the beets, but this is the second vegetable right here. So here's one vegetable you get down there, and there's a bonus. So a lot of these here are like 3 for $5. Sometimes you'll see pricing like that. So you get 2 different preparations here, 2 different preparations there. Lots of good stuff. Kale's beautiful. I do like to see it when it has some bug holes in it, though, actually, because then it means if there's bugs, that means it's not a bunch of chemicals and pesticides. In addition to growing stuff in our own little garden, but that's for my family. But yeah, I like to get as much as I can from here, because this is where you see the seasons. You see now, we were talking about it earlier, pomegranates and persimmons and delicata squash, and those are the things that we'll see here now today. And then there's staple ingredients as well, and things that keep a little bit better, apples and things, but they'll fall off, and there'll be times where that's not available. There's not raspberries available. Okay, well, let's go for a different fruit, But I like being able to get it from here and not have it flown from Chile or South America. I really like the fact that the food is grown within a couple 100 miles of where I'm eating it.
I think that because we're an urban environment here in Long Beach, that the need for local farms is there, but it's difficult because of land use. So the fact that we have the farmers markets that we could come to that bring food from Temecula, from Tehachapi, is great. But I personally would really like to see more urban farming on vacant land. We do have more vacant land than, you know, Paul and I have driven around and dreamed about putting a farm here, a farm there. So we know where we know where they all are. But I think that restaurants, there's 2 farms in Long Beach right now that produce food for actual restaurants for profit.
Yes.
And they're maxed out. We can't buy from them because, number one, we do events. So we have 500 people on a Saturday. No farm in Long Beach is going to have that produce for us.
Wow.
Unless we buy futures, which when we did the TED conference, we did buy out Gladys Farm for the TED conference, and they grew just for us.
Well, he has a pair that is a pair that's crossbreed between I don't know. Yeah, please pull it off. Bartlett pears, they break down really, really fast.
Yes.
So Bartletts have a super high sweetness, but they can't really last on the shelf a long time.
Yes.
And so, you know, because they go ripe very, very fast. The Anjou holds for a long, long time, and so the cross between those two becomes this pear that I've kept up to 3 months in my refrigerator. Bought a whole case of them from them, and we just use them on salads for the course of 3 months. So it's a huge investment, but the flavor is just like outstanding.
If we had more urban farms, more neighborhood gardens, more food growing in our urban environment, you know,
Wow.
that's got to lift, you know.
That's huge.
Rising tides lift all ships. So that's got to be something that is beneficial to everybody. But I also notice that the education and awareness of people is so much bigger now. They really are asking questions. They're reading labels. They're trying to work through the quagmire. Is it organic? Is it natural? What do the labels really mean? What are on the labels? And just because somebody slaps organic on there doesn't necessarily mean it always is. With glyphosate, and we could go down a whole tunnel, you know, a whole thing
Rabbit
on
hole.
that. Yeah, rabbit hole on that. But that's a whole other conversation. But I just think that for instance, 18 years ago or whenever we did our first Days of Taste program, one kid raised their hand and said they'd been to a farmer's market. And now when we do it, all the kids raise their hand.
Yay.
So that just shows you. And those kids are now in college and they're millennials,
right.
you know. So they've kind of been raised with a different background in education and maybe a little more awareness than was happening in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. When our food was hijacked, you know, really in the 70s, but when our food was hijacked by big corporations and you open a box and what's in the box and, you know, everything's processed. So I think the more natural food, organic food, homegrown food we can eat, it's got to help.
But I didn't make up today. So.
No makeup? You don't have the black eyes like you had the other day for Halloween.
Oh, I'm very lucky night. So lucky night. Really lucky night.
Sometimes you'll see like the little part on the top. So you can just take part of it, put it in a jar, add more apple juice to it from your own apples if you wanted to, and you just keep on making your own vinegar. So this is a good vinegar base and super healthy for you. It also makes you guys have the syrup or no? They have a apple cider syrup, apple cinnamon syrup that's really delicious. I mix it with Jack Daniels and then the apple cinnamon syrup, and then I lacquer pork loin on a little rotisserie, on those little Faberware rotisseries. Okay.
You've given us some real food for thought here, and it's something that Coastal Catalyst wants to be part of. You know, we have our own magic in our name with the word catalyst. You know, you've got alchemy and you've got catalyst, but you know, we see that we could be the platform to push ideas like yours about how can we change the land use laws? How is it that we could utilize every possible space in Long Beach for these gardens, for these ranchers if we need to, whatever we need to do to bring the food right here locally. I so support that, and what food for thought you've given us today. Thank you so much for your time and your energy in the food movement.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.